customizedwalls.com and one of the moderators for the interior design community here on Google+. And we have a great show today. We're talking about the state of the real estate market 2014 and going forward, and what trends are sort of starting to emerge, and how interior designers and the furniture industry can benefit from some of those changes and create some opportunities for themselves. And I'm going to jump right in to talk to Leslie. You're our fantastic guest. Tell us a little bit about this conference that you attended and what it was named and what it was about.
Absolutely. The name of the conference was the National Association of Real Estate Editors Conference. It was held here in Houston last week on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I spent most of Wednesday and Thursday actually listening in via Twitter on the tag, which everybody would want to go back and look at because there's some very good reference material there. So the tag is NARI14, if you'd like to go back and look at the tag. And it was a conference of 56 of our country's top real estate editors. The Wall Street Journal was there, Consumer Reports was there, Newsday was there, Bloomberg was there, just LA Times was there, just about I think pretty much every major real estate editor in our country was there, and they were listening to the experts that they get their news from. So the reports that you're seeing come out now on all of those news channels are based on what they heard at that conference, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the conference and attend it on Friday of last week, where I had the distinct pleasure of meeting Dan DeClerico, who is the senior home reporter for consumerreports.org, and I think Dan said that he was going to be listening in on this call today. But Dan was very great and took time to listen and interview me, and I interviewed him, and so we had a lovely time meeting each other, and it was very productive in that it was the first time, I think, that the real estate industry had sort of connected with someone on the furniture and interior design side. And of course, everything in our industry, as everyone watching knows, flows downstream from everything that's happening in the real estate and housing industry. So I had a chance to listen to our country's top economists right alongside all of our country's top real estate editors, yet today I wanted to take what I heard from them and extrapolate that into some good, I think, new opportunities that are emerging for the furniture industry as well as the interior designers that are watching.
Sure, sure. Now, Leslie, you are a top social media strategist for some of the largest, you've worked with some of the largest furniture companies in the United States. You've worked with high-end interior designers for many years. And why was it important to you to attend a conference like this? Did you really, you know that you want that everything goes downstream, but what made you spend the time to take out time of your busy schedule? I know is very busy to attend something like this.
Well, there's two things. One is, although I haven't written for it in quite a while, but for the past 9 years, I have written the Retail Ideas blog for FurnitureToday.com. And Furniture Today is the largest weekly news magazine for the furniture industry. And so I thought that this would make an incredibly interesting news story to start off sort of a rewriting again for the Furniture Today blog. I can write, whenever I want, and I've just been so busy that I haven't written in quite a while. But I know that our industry needs to know this information. And when I saw the quality of what was being shared on the NARI14 tag on Twitter on Wednesday, that's when I thought, I need to do this. Someone needs to do it, because the housing and real estate industries just aren't really connecting with our industry, and our industry is not connecting with that industry. And we have a chance via social media to actually connect those dots. And so I felt like, well, who better? If not me, who? And because it was here in Houston, it was very easy for me to do that. So that's really the first thought that went through my mind. And I knew that, having the interior design community here, which I'm not quite sure if we've reached 20,000 members yet or not, but we're close.
Very soon.
Yes, and so I knew that there was a platform where also that I, could share this information with a lot of people, not only here in the United States, but around the world who might watch this. And I know it will be helpful to everyone today to hear what I'm going to say. So there's no ulterior motive other than this is just a give back moment for me.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I'm going to, go right into it. what are some of the top, items that you learned that you think are really important for our industry?
Okay, well, I've taken some notes, so if I'm looking down, I'm looking at my notes, so I'll get the numbers correct. But I think we first need to look at, for all the interior designers, furniture manufacturers maybe watching, the macro demographics in our country today. Because I don't think we have, sometimes we get lost, in the trees and we don't really see the forest. So I'm going to go from the forest to the trees, okay? The forest is that the population in the United States today projected is approximately 360 million people in the United States. Now let's contrast that, for instance, with China, a growing market at 1.351 billion people. So you can see that we have a much smaller population than obviously China and as well as India, these emerging countries. So I think those, number one, are emerging markets for designers to sell products into. So that's just one point I would like to make. Our life expectancy in this country right now is 78.64 years old. So when you think about what that means, let's say I'm in my late 50s right now. So really, I'm only expected to live about 20 more years based on average life expectancy. So a lot of baby boomers like myself are thinking about, that and what that means for our lifestyle. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. Very interesting, I think, is to know for all the designers on the pad, the median household income in the U.S. right now is $53,000 and change. So when you think about that, college educations have to be saved from that, and retirement savings, and food and housing costs, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's interesting to think about that. So the luxury market that some of you deal with on this call is a very, very tiny portion of the overall market in the United States. But the overall market in the United States does not actually have a lot of disposable income to spend on furniture and interior design services. And I think that is sometimes the contraction that some of the people watching on this call are experiencing and feeling. The number of occupied, the median value of occupied housing units right now is $181,400. So that means the average home price is $181,000. So if we take, let's say, 15% of that for an interior design budget, you're looking at maybe, $18,000 for a total home budget for the median home price. So that's something else, to really consider, I think, for designers listening in. And our population is actually increasing, but at a very, very tiny rate. So for the past 3 years, we've had a 2.4% population increase in the United States. So that means that, before, like where we had these huge booms in baby boomer times and millennial times, our population is actually decreasing in the U.S. So people are not having as many children as they once did. And of course, I think that's partly because it's so expensive these days to house, feed, clothe, and shore kids. So it's just all of these are macro trends that are impacting the housing industry that are also going to be impacting, the furniture and interior design industry as well. So I want to go right into, just taking my notes here. At this conference, the most interesting thing that I had the opportunity to actually listen to live was the nation's top economists talking to the editors. And what they had to say was very, very interesting and instrumental, I think, for our industry. And the number one thing that the Wall Street Journal actually wrote about yesterday was this phenomenon called lockout rates. And what that means is a lot of homeowners right now in the U.S. have interest rates on their homes that are somewhere in the range of 3 to 3.5%, fixed rates for years. So they don't want to give those up. And all of the economists, there were 5 on the panel, agreed that interest rates were going to be trending back up as the Federal Reserve loosens the interest rate constrictions that have been in place in the past several years to to boost the economy. So they're expecting interest rates to trend back up towards 5% by the end of next year, which means it's more expensive for people to buy a home. So if you have a rate on let's say even a luxury home at $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 at 3%, you're not really going to want to trade that, trade up into, even if you want to, but you probably won't actually trade up into a home, let's see, another $100,000 more expensive than that, and also paying a 5% mortgage on that. So what that means is a fabulous opportunity, I think, for interior designers, which is remodeling. I think the remodeling industry, because as these folks who actually do have the money, who have these expensive homes, they decide, no, we're not going to move, we're going to stay, why move? We've got to still stay for our college educations. We have a 3.5% 30-year mortgage, right? They don't want to move. Or even if they want to move, they're deciding not to move, and they're just deciding, let's upgrade, let's remodel our kitchen, our bath. And we're seeing that, in our industry a bit, but we're going to see a lot more of that because that trend is just continuing. So as housing prices continue to go up, we are going to see people staying because they have these low mortgage rates. So that is a huge opportunity in your modeling area, and positioning yourself to take advantage of that in your market area. I think kind of what's been missing that I see as an opportunity for everybody listening to this is to market to that, to say, do you have a beautiful home? You don't have to say it like this, but do you have a beautiful home with a 3.5% mortgage rate? You decided not to move. Do you need remodeling? Something like that. That's a little bit, cut and dry.
I absolutely understand what you're saying, because I think that how these trends will translate to how an interior designer can pivot their business slightly. Now, did you find that when you were listening to these trends, were they talking at all about bigger additions, like the millennials starting out with a starter home that might be a little bit smaller, but instead of moving to that upgrade that you'd normally move to, making it a total addition where they might add a bedroom, another bedroom? Was that something that was discussed?
It's interesting. The whole first-time home buyer market, of course, at that level, at the housing real estate level, was discussed at length. And the millennial issue was discussed at length. And the fact is, and probably a lot of you, listening, have this situation where your children haven't been able to find jobs. So your millennial children have been living at home with you. That is a huge trend that's been going on. And one of the economists that was present showed a chart that he had charted it all the way back with a percentage of millennials living at home with their parents. And it has just now started to dip a little bit. As the economy is slowly improving, those millennials are able to move out. But they are not moving into homes, which is an issue for our industry. They're actually moving into apartments first until they can save up for that down payment. Another big issue is the average FICO credit score right now is 750. And the millennials are, and they brought this up at the conference, are saddled with $1 trillion worth of student debt. So a lot of them are defaulting on the debt, not paying it. Their credit scores are in the toilet. So unfortunately, they can't, even if they have the cash, they actually can't qualify for the loan. And the mortgage lenders haven't released enough, they're not, after what they've been through in the past, several years, they're not willing to give credit to, subprime mortgage holders. So those millennials are really having a hard time, even if they want to buy a home and getting their first home, which is why the rental market is booming. And everyone, right. So this is an opportunity that I wanted to talk about. So the millennials are just absolutely, kicking the rental market into gear, and high gear. And everyone that was speaking at this conference, either that I was watching the tag or, that I was privileged to witness it live, was talking about the rental market being a hot, hot, hot market. And they were saying, if you're going to invest in real estate, invest in, in great luxury rental apartments or even nice rental apartments. But that is the boom area.
I can see that for multiple reasons. Obviously, I think that you're spot on with the student debt, and I know that we're not able to lower our interest rates on our student debt, so that is a major factor. But the other thing I wonder, from a psychological standpoint, a lot of the millennials, were part of that. Watching their parents maybe lose their home, or watching, the financial crisis that their parents have gone through, and saying, I'm not sure that this is the investment that it was for maybe my parents, because, when I can say when my parents purchased their home, and then when they stayed there for 10, 15, 20 years, it was worth, 3 or 4 times what they had paid for it. For my husband and I, we're still underwater. We've had our house for 10 years. So it's you know, I can understand how a kid growing up in that economy, they would be less likely to invest in something that they don't see paying off long term.
You're absolutely right, Lori. That is a point that was brought up, actually, exactly that point, that children, or not children, but millennials, you know, the children of baby boomers, have witnessed that, exactly, and they just don't see homeownership as, you know, the be-all and end-all of what they should be doing, which is, you know, it was a little scary, I think, for the real estate agents that were present at this, you know, event, because there were some real estate agents, but again, remember, this whole conference was for editors, not agents. So there were some agents attending, just like there were some outside people like me attending, just to hear, you know, where their industry is going. But it definitely is a new world out there. So you're right. The millennials are not really saying the millennials in general, and this is where the millennials and boomers are exactly identical, which is very interesting again in terms of the opportunity this presents for designers. Boomers, although they might be able to afford a home, they actually if they're going to move out of their home, they're downsizing, and they want to live in the exact same urban cores as the millennials want to live in those same apartments. They actually don't want to buy again. They don't want to get locked into a long-term interest rate. They don't really know where the market's going. They've just been through that whole debacle, and they're like, well, let's live in a luxury apartment and, you know, have beautiful amenities all around us and be free to travel and be able to pick up that phone and call someone 24/7 to come over and change our light bulb when we can. So one of the gentlemen present was one of the major apartment developers in the United States, and he was saying that he cannot build 3-bedroom luxury apartment complexes fast enough. And they can get premium rates for them because the baby boomers can afford it. And some of the millennials can't afford it as well, and they can't get into their houses yet. So that 3-bedroom apartment unit, I feel that presents another huge opportunity for interior designers. And what will people need that actually do have disposable income but are choosing to live in apartments? So that mindset that we've had that apartment means no money, like apartment means IKEA, right?
Right.
Or IKEA furniture, that actually is what, there's a shift there. An apartment can mean gorgeous furniture. It just needs to be very multifunctional. It needs to be able to be on casters, so it can be moved easily. So if it's for whether it's a millennial that doesn't have children now but has 2 being born in the next 5 years, right? And they need that furniture to be able to move around so they have a play space for their children. Or it's a boomer who might be in a wheelchair situation, or, you know, so that multifunctional furniture, maybe on concealed casters, I see whoever is making that or wants to make that, that's very chic and beautiful, I see you having smooth sailing financially for your company. I just think that's going to be a really, really big opportunity for both markets, marketed differently, right? So again, I think that's been sort of the missing link, is the way it's marketed. So if you are a manufacturer watching this, or even a furniture, you know, designer who wants to have their own line of furniture, if you're doing some kind of concealed caster, really cool, you know, chic, nice, movable furniture, if you want to market to the millennials, you're going to show how it can move away so their kids can play, right? So the kids can have a play space.
Sure.
If you're marketing it to the boomers, you might want to show it how it can move away so that when grandma comes over, like, you know, my mother, that her wheelchair can move in, right? So I can have it like I want for my friends, right, for entertaining for my friends, but when my mother and maybe 1 or 2 of her bridge friends come over, that I can actually move it around and still have it look nice. So it would be all in the way that you market it to the audience that you want to reach. And actually, if you're a manufacturer, you can market it to both audiences, but it has to be a different way you're marketing it.
Now, I understand from the perspective of in, you know, the urban developments and having, you know, you might want to invest in luxury apartment buildings in urban developments, but in the rural areas, I can say in New Hampshire, we actually are primarily a French-Canadian town. We were built on a mill. There are a lot of, and this used to be the way it was when my father was young, that they would have 3-unit buildings, 3-unit houses, and, you know, the grandmother would live there, and then the aunts and the uncles would live there, but there were 3 apartments or 4 apartments in these big apartment buildings, and it wasn't common for people just to go off and and go on their own so quickly. And I think that that might be something that comes back and in a more modern and beautiful way. But I can see that taking,
definitely
being
see
important.
That. I agree. I think I can definitely see that. The issue right now, just right now, is being able to afford a mortgage on that type of property. When you look at that median income, again, being at $54,000, unfortunately, that's part of what I was saying. Now, again, if you are someone who's just inherited money, or you do have a lot of money, then that's going to be a little different. But that's only maybe less than 1% of our overall U.S. population. So the issue is right now, and everybody at this conference said it, all the economists, the issue is truly, to your point, affordable housing that can move with the generations. So whoever gets that right is going to have another boom market, I think, on their hands. And they were saying at the conference that the affordable housing inventory is very, very low all around the country right now because the developers and the home builders, have really gone through years and years of, negative stuff. And so now that the market is returning, they're able to pace out the amount of building they're doing in order to have a higher profit margin on their, what they call stock, on their inventory. So they're more interested right now in recouping the losses, that they've endured over these past years versus, being a little more altruistic in their thinking and creating affordable housing for the masses. They're just interested in making money, to be honest, if they're in business. So it's definitely, there's an issue with affordable housing. And that, I think, actually, I was listening to a program on NPR yesterday. It just happened to be, I might have seen it too, where they were talking about this very thing in LA. A woman with her husband, 2 children in LA, in a really bad part of LA, was actually paying $1,000 a month for an apartment that was trashed. And they were saying there's just no affordable housing in LA, no matter where you live. So there was a little statistic, excuse me while I look off, that I found just fascinating that one of the economists shared. It was, I don't want to get it wrong, but I had it over here. Hold on one second. Well, I want to say that I think it is in 110 of the major metro areas, I'm going to say the median apartment price was just so high. It's very, very tough for people to afford to even live in an apartment.
Right.
So if you're in an apartment, yes. So if you're in an apartment right now, and I'm sure some of you know that might be living out west, but in a lot of areas it's very tough to even afford an apartment right now. So if you have a good one, stay where you are.
Right.
That is the opportunity. Again.
I'm curious about how these, when I think back about my apartment days and the things that bothered me as a renter and why I really wanted a house, I think about, not being able to put my ownership on my price. I wanted to put my stamp on my space. I wanted to have paint, or I wanted to have, better appliances, or I wanted the countertop to be different, or things like that. You just never move into an apartment that you love everything, that's there. And do you think that there will be more tenants staying in an apartment and renovating apartments, even though it's not their own?
I do, and I think that goes on all the time now in New York, where people just absolutely can't afford their own home. A lot of people in New York City renovate their apartments. And they put in a whole new kitchen, they put in closets, lots and lots of built-in storage solutions. I've done that myself several years ago when I sold my own first and only home here in Houston. I moved into a high-rise, and I actually did have a complete custom closet built in because it didn't have enough space for me. And when I left the closet. So I was one that was, willing to do that. And so, yes, I think there's going to be a lot more customization. What you do, your company is going to be, I think, perfectly positioned to take advantage of this. You sell removable, customized wallpaper. So, solutions like that allow people to change their environment. Again, if you're going to stay in an apartment for 5 years because you have a decent, rental rate, then you're going to want to, your life is going to change, and you're going to want to change it up occasionally. So, again, I think things that are movable, I think you all have seen, but I saw it at ICFF, where there's a company now that takes IKEA cabinets, kitchen cabinets, and they can put, and this company, their business is putting a new front on those cabinets, and you can choose from several different fronts. So you could actually potentially take out really icky, kitchen cabinets in a rental kitchen. It's not too expensive to buy IKEA kitchen cabinets, and then front them with something that looks really beautiful. When I was in this space at ICFF, Jamie Derringer from Design Milk was there, and she has really written about this company quite a bit. So I will tell you that Design Milk loves them, and I wish I could remember their name right now, but I can't. Anyway, I think there was another opportunity for those of you who are furniture manufacturers. Think about that. Could you build some type of cabinet that's pretty basic, but then have something where you slip in a different front on it? So let's say I tire of light oak. I want deep walnut fronts in my home. Could I slip in something in the front of that cabinet and on the top that would let me change the look of it and update it a little bit? I think products like that lets you change things out are going to be very popular. I think it's a huge opportunity from a product design standpoint. And also things that are multifunctional. And again, with all of the remodeling going on, the storage, again, I think products with interesting storage are going to be absolutely amazing. One of the things that I saw at High Point Market in that regard, and probably many of you did too if you were there, was in Mitzi Beach actually style spotted it, but Jeannie Chung, one of our fellow moderators in this community, actually she invited me to come over to the showroom called More Council, and Gary Inman had designed this fabulous piece that is an armoire. Did you see it, Lori?
No, I didn't see it. No, I missed it.
Not your typical armoire. The armoire has jewelry drawers, and it has lighted shelving for purses, and on the back of it there's a pull-out for hanging your scarves. So multifunctional pieces like that that allow, that can be used in a smaller space, I think that kind of design is going to be extremely popular in the coming years based on what I've heard. And going back to home building, so the builders, when the building happens, it's actually going to be smaller footprints. And that's what all the builders that were present and that were on the tab were saying. So we're building smaller footprints. And that means, but we're building higher volume, so we feel we have the space, right? So it's a smaller footprint house, let's say 1,500 square foot house, maybe versus 2,000. Energy efficient appliances are extremely important, and I think that bodes well for all of our friends that are in that business. That was a huge, huge discussion there. So for all of our DXV friends, you're in good shape. But at any rate, the homes are going to go up in volume, which means windows, right, to let in the light. So if we have these smaller footprints on our homes, and this is what they were saying there, the builders were saying, we're going to be smaller footprints, we're going to go up in volume, we're going to have larger windows because what our buyers want is the light.
Right.
Okay.
I can see that. We actually have two comments from our community. We have one, Alicia, saying that when she lived in Pennsylvania, 2 years ago they paid $1,300 a month, and Faith Sheridan says a studio in my Seattle neighborhood is $1,750 a studio. So yeah, that goes to what you were saying.
Exactly. So think about that. A homeowner that can afford $1,750 for a studio in Seattle, or even $1,300 a month in Pennsylvania, that's a lot of money when the median income is $54,000. So for those of you who may be thinking still, well, apartment dweller isn't my ideal design customer, I would say not so true, because that's a lot of money, and people are choosing to live in those units versus choosing to live in a home where they have more maintenance on top of all of that. So,
I can tell you that we shifted probably about probably about a year ago, actually, focusing on luxury apartment buildings in urban areas as a market for customized walls. And we work with the maintenance teams for many different buildings, and they get a percentage of the sales. But when you have a welcome pack, when a client comes, when a new resident comes in, they get a welcome pack with a sample and a gift certificate, and for a discount. And it's working out really, really well for us as a marketing plan. And I can say that when I talk to the clients we get from that, normally they are living in a luxury apartment because their jobs move. They don't want to put down those roots and have that financial burden of owning something that they're not sure is going to turn around and be underwater in 2 or 3 years. And a lot of people are moving their jobs in 5 years. So is that something that they were talking about with job changes?
They weren't so much, because they were talking more about housing and real estate in general, so they weren't really that actual, or at least I didn't hear that point come up. It may have come up and I just didn't hear that particular point, but that is so true. It's definitely another reason why you would want to live in an apartment versus a home right now, because if you do have to move, and with the job market as it is, you don't want to be underwater. So it makes sense. And where I live here in Texas, in Houston, I do live in a luxury apartment complex, and there are so many people also that move here, especially to Texas, for international people that are working in Nassau, which is close to me, or that are working at the medical center, which is a little bit further away, but they like living down here on the lake. So there's also that contingent. There's more and more people, and that was an interesting thing that they brought up. The market for luxury homes here, or the buyers for luxury homes in the United States, are more and more the Chinese and the Mexicans. So they are the ones buying up our luxury properties. So when you think about that, and they're the homeowners, and if you're a luxury designer watching, what does that mean about what type of furniture that those two groups of people might like? I think, and that if you're on the luxury side, are you marketing to a Chinese customer? How can you market to a Chinese customer? How can you market in Mexico? Could you put an ad in on Aeromexico's flight magazines? Or I don't know, what airline flies, from the U.S. to China, but, that would be another potential option that I personally would look at if I was still doing luxury interior design, because when that Chinese, and again, who's selling those homes to the Chinese buyer? You more than likely have a real estate agent in your local area that might be both a speaker of Chinese and a speaker of English, so I would probably look to, find that person and who that is, and develop a relationship with them, so that they might be able to refer you for those luxury design jobs. And it might come to a year, but I do want to.
They could make the same relationships I'm trying to make with the maintenance teams. Usually there's a maintenance team, and there could be the same thing where a local designer gives in a discount or a free, some sort of free evaluation of the property or something like that, where they can make a relationship with these high-rise luxury apartment buildings, and they would just get the referrals over and over again.
I think that would be such a smart idea. I also think it's very possible, every apartment building, including where I live, has a Facebook page, friends that are watching. So there's no reason, and of course that's page-to-page marketing, right? So if you have a Facebook page and you're a designer watching, there's no reason you can't go on to 5 luxury apartments in your communities, in your area, and say, if any of you might need design services, I'd be more than happy to offer you a discount, and leave your link on the apartment's page. You may or may not get a response, but they're seeing your name, and as you know, that when you leave a link on someone's page, it gives you your company name. So even if they never read what you're saying, your company name is actually stuck forever on that apartment complex's Facebook page. And I know where I live, people are constantly going back to the Facebook page just to see what events are happening here and if there's any notices that we need to know about. So pretty much everyone that lives here does check in on the Facebook page, once a week or so at least, just to see what's going on, and more often on the weekend, so that's a tip. So there's ways to use social media, I think, very effectively if you're a designer in your local areas to reach this type of luxury renter, if you will, that would potentially be interested in your services.
I think that from what I've heard, and this is just in the relationships I've built for customized walls in luxury furnishings, that a lot of the clients say that they're not hiring out for interior design services, because whether it could be because they're not staying very long, they're only there for 2 to 5 years, or because they just think it's too expensive. My thought from the conversations I've had with the clients I've talked to in that market, they think that they just think it's a luxury service that they're not willing to spend money on. And it's not that they don't have money to spend. They're buying higher end things. They're buying customized walls are not cheap. We don't have the cheapest wallpaper, so when I'm thinking to the conversations I've had where I know that they've said that they bought luxury. Usually a customized wall goes in when they're already buying something else. So they're buying luxury, furniture. They're buying luxury, a new bedroom, a whole new bedroom. They just don't necessarily, I think, understand what a designer can do for them. So is there some education that a designer has to get to that point where a luxury apartment dweller would want to pay for design services?
And I think that brings up such a great point, which is when we've talked about this before, you and I, and I've definitely had this conversation with some of my friends, but designers that are watching, please, on your sites, if you feel comfortable with this, you have a menu of services, and here's how I would recommend that you break it down. Now, if you're we all know that there's luxury designer and there's luxury designer, so let's just say you're in the luxury designer category, okay? You can still take that ultra luxury client, and you don't have to have a menu of services necessarily for that super ultra luxury client who will always pay anyway to get just your undivided attention. We know that. But for this new client or this new opportunity, what I would say is this: charge, and I don't know, your markets are going to be different around the country, but I'm just going to tell you what I personally think, and some of you may not realize this, but before I started my company 12 years ago, I spent 20 years as a luxury interior designer here in Houston. Worked 10 years for Roche Bobois and 6 years for Cantoni, and then 4 years for another company. So I've actually dealt with that luxury consumer customer. So I'm going to share this coming from my own background of what I think they actually are willing to invest in design services. If you set it up on your site with a link, a clickable link that you can put out there, my menu of services. Okay, so I would charge for your creative design time only. And so let's say that that's going to be 20 hours, and you're going to charge at, let's say, $100 an hour or $75 an hour. That's up to you. But $1,500 to $2,000 gets that apartment dweller 2 hours or 3 hours with you on the phone or in person, however they want to manage
or
that.
With Hangouts.
What's that? Or Hangout.
Google Hangouts.
Google Hangout. And then 16 hours of your design, your creation. And all they're paying for in that is your creative vision, period, over and out. If you set it up that way, they will pay for that, 100%. A lot of people that I talk to are afraid to set it up that way. They're afraid to charge just for their inner creative vision. But we all know that sometimes consumers want to go out and shop on their own, and you need to just let that be okay. Now, I also know that a lot of my friends, don't like that idea because they want to control the creative vision, and they want to control the entire project. So if that's you, this won't be right for you. But if you want to create a new opportunity for yourself from a revenue stream standpoint, this is a way to do it. So set up this menu of services and charge just for your creative time, and let the client know that this is just for my creative vision. I won't be shopping for you. I won't be specifying product for you. I won't be doing anything else other than just giving you my vision. You're paying for my creativity, just like an artist. You are an artist. That's how I see designers, as artists in 3D. So that's what they're paying for. And then if that customer shops you after that, or they want to do that, let that be okay. And that, I think, is a way for them to be really, especially an apartment type customer, for them to be really okay with hiring you. Okay, I need this person's advice. I'm really curious what they're going to say. I can do $1,500. I'm going to do this for 20 hours. And I'll be really happy. And yes, I'd love to spend my weekends going out and looking for furniture. And, I have a plan in my head, and I can go find this. And then you can say to them, okay, if you want me to procure any of this furniture for you, I will find the least expensive price for you on the net, and I'm going to add 15% to that, or 20%, to manage the procurement process for you, and let them know step by step what that means. What does that mean for any of you watching? When a designer procures furniture for you, they're actually writing the order. That takes some time. Or they're entering it online. That takes some time. They're following up on that order for you. They might be ordering samples for you to make sure that you're going to get, a dye match if it's or textiles are involved. They're then they're going to get a confirmation order. They're going to follow up on that confirmation order, and then they're going to follow up when it actually comes in. So that's actually what's involved in order procurement. And I think a lot of designers, we know this, or you all know this, but it's not explained step by step like that to the consumers, and so they don't value it because they really don't understand how much of their time it's going to take. So if they're okay with spending that time doing all of that, then that's great, and you can just let them be, and that's fine. But if not, they'll pay you an agreed upon upcharge, and as long as they know in advance, they're usually just fine with that. And then what's the next step? Let's say that there's architectural work to be done. Now, in an apartment, what's nice is there isn't usually any. So that's what's nice about taking this as a new opportunity for yourselves. You really don't have to worry about the construction and managing the subs and all the time that can take and all of the liability that involves as well. Sometimes you're still going to have that if there's a kitchen redo and they want to do that, but in general, you won't have that piece to worry about. So what's the next step? Let's say that they want you to do the order procurement. The next step is the installation and styling. Okay, so what's involved with installation? You want to charge for that. So you're going to charge a flat fee if they want you to be there on the installation to manage the delivery process from the time the e-commerce retailer ships it to some location or your house, and they ship it in great big boxes. Who's going to manage that process of getting it inside, getting it unwrapped, checking for damages, putting it in place, cleaning it, and styling it? That's not something any e-com retailer does. So you can charge a fee to do that, to manage the install. So in this way, I feel if you offered a menu of services to this new group of consumers out there, which are going to be millions upon millions upon millions, I feel like you could have a really strong revenue stream of probably anywhere between $1,500 to $3,000 per job without a lot of headache on your part that comes from managing a really, really large, ultra custom luxury job. So I hope that idea helps you a bit, and it is very real because this is what is going on. And I would be a perfect customer for something like that. Not for any of you watching, don't call me, but I can handle $3,000 to have someone help me with all of that. See, I may not want to invest $15,000. That wouldn't be me. But I could do that. And I think there's a lot of people out there just like me who could do the same thing and want that.
I think you're absolutely right, and it would be ongoing. I mean, my grandmother had a condo. My mother will probably live there at some point, and I think that she would have done that on a regular basis, just when she wanted to change something, to just get that advice from a designer that she's making some of the right choices. She definitely would have purchased that, and I think she did actually. But I think that we have Faith here, Faith Sheridan, who says she wonders if a short-term day of design, as you described, would work. I mean, do you think it's more of that you would be more of a process than one day? I mean, to me, I would want the person to be there for a day where I have their attention about what I want done, but I would also want them to, check up on the process so that I'd at least be able to touch base and say, okay, you said I should buy a sofa that this size, right? But this is the pattern I picked out. Is this going to work with the design? And they can say yes or no to me.
And that is where the menu of services comes in. So Faith, to your question, I don't think phrasing it day of design is exactly the right phrasing to reach this market, the rental market. I think it's more of I can't think of a cute little term right now. I'm sure Veronica is here.
Consultant, instead of like you're giving a consultation versus you're giving an actual design. You're giving them a consultation.
Exactly. It is a menu of services proposition so that they don't feel overwhelmed, and also so they can get to know your personality. So let's say I decide to invest $1,500. Okay, if I don't like you, okay, I've got 20 hours worth or 10 hours or whatever you want to charge for your time. And I'm okay with that. I can afford to lose that, in other words, that risk reward. And then I can determine if I think you're so wonderful that, okay, it is really worth it. It's just a way for me to get into using a designer. And I think, Lori, to your point that a lot of apartment dwellers don't think they can afford to work with a designer, I think by offering this type of menu of services and outlining piece by piece by piece exactly what goes into interior design work, not only the creative vision, but the work of it, I think would be so helpful. And I think that is I really believe that's the complete missing piece. I think designers are so used to doing what they do that they don't think to outline and charge separately so that consumers have a choice. And if one thing about millennials, I think, Lori, you are one, you can speak to this, you like to have choices. Is that correct?
I do. I absolutely do. I definitely have experienced myself. I buy online. I price things comparatively. I read reviews. I mean, that's how I do a majority of my major purchases today. I mean, I do all of my Christmas shopping that way, and almost every major purchase I make now online, that's my goal, is to see the reviews, see if people are liking it, what they don't like about it, before I make a decision that I'm unhappy with.
Yeah. So I think, again, if you were to work into this luxury apartment market in your markets, and then you were asking your customers, let's say, to give you, or your clients to give you a review, well, they could actually go on the Facebook page, if they would do this for you, of the apartment community and say, thank you, Faith Sheridan Interior Design for, doing such a beautiful job of my apartment here. It looks great. You can imagine if you had one person saying that on their Facebook page of a very expensive apartment complex, everybody else in that apartment complex would be calling that person or wanting to see it, and then I think you would have an avalanche of business that way, or at least enough to really make some decent money. 3 jobs at $3,000 a month, that's $9,000 a month without having to work extremely hard, and in a fun sort of way where there's not a lot of construction activity, so there's not so much liability for designers. I think this market is going to boom if you market it properly. So to me now, and I could be wrong because I'm sure every designer that's doing design for a day type services is doing that differently as well, and we don't know what that means for each individual designer that's doing that. But design for a day, to me, would indicate that you're getting like everything that a designer does. So what I'm talking about, just to be clear, is breaking it down into the creative vision, which is one piece, and then every other process that comes along with design. And I also think by breaking it down into that creative vision piece, that you help really elevate the entire design profession by helping consumers see that you truly are artists in 3D, and that is really true from my experience, but I don't think a lot of designers kind of maybe even think of themselves that way sometimes. So I think you would really be doing a service to the entire design profession and to consumers to help you see, or to counteract sort of the effect of some of the TV programs that are out there that we all know and don't love. So no names mentioned. So anyway.
My wheels are turning, and I'm thinking about talking to furniture delivery people that I've had in the past, and I'm thinking about if I were a local designer and I wanted to reach out to some local apartment complexes, apartment high-rises, that there are almost always challenges in how they get, if the sofa's too big, they can't fit it in the elevators, they can't get it up there. Weight challenges, if it's very heavy material, and knowing that building and knowing what sizes work in the different layouts, because their layouts are going to be pretty standard. You're going to have different layout configurations, and getting in there and even having one time that you're going in and designing one unit, how much better educated you're going to be with the next client, because you'll know, this is the maximum width you can do with those elevators. This is going to be, some color choices that will go with their available carpets or their available hardwood floor options that they have for the units. And I think that the other interesting aspect is to sort of like, make partnerships with some of these e-commerce companies, because I can really see that an apartment dweller, I think that, personally, I think that industry is changing so much. The buy direct industry is changing so much because I think that people do love that. I mean, Amazon takes off like crazy, Wayfair takes off like crazy, and I think that's because, you know, if you are an apartment dweller, you get free shipping. You don't have to. If I went to a furniture store today, I would have to either pay for the delivery, or I would, have to figure out how to get it to my house. And with buying it online, that's just not. You don't have to think about that. They just deliver it. The problem is that I don't know. I have maybe not thought as a consumer how wide that couch is and how big it is. I mean, when I talked to our furniture delivery people that just delivered our couch a year ago, they said on average they have like 30% of the sofas they deliver do not fit in the space that the people.
And that is a service that designers that are listening, can offer.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you might be able to help them with some style choices, but knowing how to show them what they're going to need to get the products into that space. What size sofas should they purchase? What size end tables should they purchase? Based on the layout of the space, I think it would be really, really helpful. I can imagine any apartment dweller liking that. Or if there are products out there that you suggest that they can put on the wall that there's adjoining, because there's always noise issues. Just getting to know what products you might want to sell for apartment living would be really important.
And I agree. I think that's a great idea about forming relationships with some of our major e-com partners, because they are going to be selling into this market. I mean, for those of you who don't know, or for those of you who may be watching this that attended NARI or that I met while I was there, Wayfair, and I actually heard a comment on the tag about how furniture was sort of e-com proof. Well, actually that's not true. Furniture is the third largest growing category being sold on e-commerce sites today. So for those of you outside our industry who may see this, the e-tailer Wayfair is actually selling almost $600 million worth of furniture today online only. So they are absolutely huge, and I think Amazon is the only e-tailer selling more furniture than Wayfair is right now online. So the furniture market is, and this was something that came up in the whole conversation about, and interesting for all of you watching, that a site called auction.com, which is where buyers and sellers come together without a real estate agent, Google Capital just invested $50 million in this site in March. So it is definitely the way things are going, where unless that middle person can offer increased value, and this is part of what our industry has been facing as well, and all of you designers have been facing this a bit too. How do you really convince the consumer of your increased value? And that's why I wanted to do this today, because I feel like there's really a very strong way, which is doing this sort of menu of services approach, so that the consumer really does understand tightly what you really do offer, in addition to the creative vision that you offer them, but the services, because time is money. And even me, my time, some of you know that I'm really busy, and I don't have children. I can't even imagine how some of you who have kids and husbands and big houses and busy lives do it. I could not do it. So I'm totally willing. I look at it very much that way, like, is the amount of money that I have to pay to get this done something that I can recoup if I spend that money on my business or in another way? And often the answer is yes. And so I am willing to invest in those things that make sense for me and for my business. And I'm sure that I'm just like 40 million other people out there. And speaking of that, I do want to, before we have a little bit more time, but just to give you a size of the markets, so that you know. So if you're a furniture manufacturer watching or interior designer, the millennial market is actually slightly larger in terms of the overall population than the boomer market. But these two markets together are, our industry's opportunity over the next, 30, 40 years. But the boomer market is projected by 2030 to be about 83 million people. And about 80 million, and the millennial market about 83 million to 86 million. So these two markets combined, the buying power is absolutely enormous. Now, right now the boomers are actually investing a little bit more because they're inheriting money. So again, if you're a designer and you're, I don't know what your personal situation is, obviously, but when you're thinking, well, that person that I see down there, they don't, they work 2 jobs and they're kind of struggling a little bit, but if they have a parent who's passed away, the chances are that there might be some inheritance coming that way. So that's what's happening right now with boomers, is they're actually inheriting their parents' money, and that gives them the opportunity to remodel or to buy new furniture. But generally, what they want to buy is high quality because they don't want to buy it again.
Right.
So that, I think, is a real, again, opportunity in education for designers to educate the boomer market, in that market, that 80 million strong market by 2030, in quality. And again, we've had this conversation online a lot, but our industry is, doesn't do a great job in educating about the quality differences between good, better, best. But I do think for those of you who might be editors watching, or bloggers, many of you, continuing to educate on good, better, best in very, very specific ways out to the consumer market, I think is something important to do, because I do believe that when that, and the millennial consumer is also very interested in quality. They want to save money. They don't want to waste it. I mean, Lori, am I correct in that?
I think that's absolutely true. And they even care, I would say, a little bit more about, sustainability and,
yes.
Is the product going to last a long time? Is it going to be sustainable? And is it something that will grow with me? Modular furniture, for instance.
That's the modular thing. Again, a huge opportunity for our furniture manufacturers. And on that sustainability question, one of the major amenities that this conference said that people were looking for were nature trails and biking trails, and even over golf courses. Like, golf courses are declining in terms of their development, and what's developing in their place are nature and hiking trails, because as a nation we're being admonished to get healthier and not be such a strain on the healthcare system in our country. So everyone's listening to that message, and interestingly enough to me, the developers are actually seeing consumers want that as a major amenity where they live. So there is that.
Well, thank you so much, Leslie. It's about time to close up. Any last comments? And I definitely want to thank you so much for taking the time to educate and just do this as a service for our interior design community and those watching on Google Plus and other areas. What are some parting words? What do you suggest we do?
Okay, I want to say one more huge category: dogs and cats and pets. The #1 amenity being asked for by luxury rental homeowners are dog pools, dog walking parks, dog this and dog that, and cat that and cat that, but dogs more. So as the boomer population grows, a lot of them are getting dogs as company, right? Because husband, wife, whatever dies. And that is a huge opportunity to design little pieces of furniture and areas in a home. And that could be a really tight niche business for some people. But I think we spent last year, just in the United States, you ready for this? $53 billion on our pets alone.
That doesn't surprise me. I love my dog. So.
It does. We see them all over Facebook, and we're all sharing our pets all the time. But I do think that's a really market for product design, as well as interior designers wanting to kind of like have a little niche and design a little room for your dog. I know it sounds bizarre, but apartment complexes are putting dog pools on the top of their apartments now for the dogs, because the dogs need play dates. So as wild as that sounds, that is what's happening. So I think there is a real opportunity in that area as well. And I will close with just saying energy efficiency. If there is, we are going to have a huge water shortage in the U.S. And I think all of you know what's going on with fracking, etc. And fracking uses millions and millions and millions of gallons of fresh water. So a huge issue is water depletion. And that means that we are not going to be able to have our suburban yards. And they feel that's coming in about 16 years, like now through 16 years from now, which isn't very far away. So with the smaller footprint for your houses and yards becoming a thing in the past because the water's too expensive to buy or you can't get it. I
It's
think
4 o'clock.
that creates a huge opportunity for the casual furniture market. And we are seeing that expand right now as a huge category anyway, but that is going to continue to expand. So I would encourage you to, again, another opportunity niche market is, designing outdoor rooms for people. And if you're a manufacturer, continuing to produce really exciting and interesting new outdoor furniture designs. Okay, thank you so much, Lori, for having me.
Thank you so much, Leslie. This has been a wealth of information for many different people that I know here on Google Plus and many interior designers in our community. Make sure that you do visit us on interiordesigncommunity.com and make sure you go over to our community on Google Plus, Interior Design Community, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos like this. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lori. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.